everyone, and welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm your host, Meredith Dykstra, and this is episode number 192. And how about this? Dr. Pompa and I are in one place. We are actually in Chicago, where Dr. Pompa's been lecturing, and we wanted to bring you guys some hot off the press information on anti-aging that Dr. Pompa's been talking a lot about lately. And it's a very important topic to all of us, right? We want to be not only looking young, but feeling good as we age, right? Because quality of life is much more important than quantity. But we can look good and feel good while we age as well. So we have 3 key solutions that we're going to be talking about today that Dr. Pompa has been teaching on that he's really found are the keys to looking young and feeling good, over the years, which I know you practice what you preach. So all of these are things that you've been studying and implementing for a long time. So we're going to go through and talk about these 3 keys.
Yeah. Well, I've been lecturing all around. And as a matter of fact, I think we should start doing more of these shows like this on the road. I think
they're
it's
fun
kind of neat.
On the road.
Yeah, so, yeah, I have been lecturing on anti-aging. So we're going to bring you that today. And, of course, we always talk about these topics that are fresh in my heart. Next week, and I don't know how these shows, we should do a show from Bulletproof. Because
I've got it on the list. Yeah.
I'm speaking at Bulletproof Conference next week. And where is that conference? Maybe some of these folks want to go.
Yeah, well, it's in Pasadena, but actually by the time you watch this, Bulletproof will have already happened. But
that's true.
Yeah,
that is true. However, we're going to do a show from there, so that'll be fun too. And I think it'll be a great show just talking about some of the really cool topics, right? Some of the biohacks that are there.
As they say.
And but anyways, this topic, I think everyone loves this topic because I'll tell you, as I hit my 50s and now 52, this has been a big thing for me. And honestly,
it's big for all of us.
Yeah, I think
as adults.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's been something that the older you get, the more you're like, okay, I don't want. Someone just put it to me this way, and I can't use the exact words because there was a cuss word involved, but we were talking about living longer, and you know what her comment was? She said, "You know what? I don't care to live longer. I just want to live every darn day feeling good." And it's so true.
Amen.
Isn't that true?
Right?
I just want to live every day
Priceless.
feeling good. So a lot of anti-aging really does apply to that. Man, I just want to live every day feeling my best. And really, that is one of my goals. But one of my goals also is, I want to be in my 90s being able to do the things I love to do. Honestly, I want to be able to ski. I want to be able to bike. Otherwise, what are we living for, right? I want to be able to play with my grandkids. And as a matter of fact, one of my goals specifically is skiing and biking and doing all those things with my grandkids, right? So
grandkids, maybe even great grandkids.
Yeah.
If you're 90s.
And I probably even a secret goal, and that's to outdo my kids, right?
It's not going to be secret now anymore, but
I really do. I mean, I want to. Really, the goal isn't necessarily to live longer, but disease-free. I've been sick before, and nothing scares me more than going back there. I'm going to be honest. I mean, nothing scares me more than not feeling good every day. If there's a day I don't feel good, I'm miserable. Frankly, you can ask my wife. That's true. But because I most of my days I absolutely feel 100%, and if I don't, my gosh, it's like I'm wondering what is wrong. So
well, that's the body telling you that something is off, and then we can do that detective work to figure out, what it is, what's up.
You know how many people out there that they have to do things in their day to feel good? Whether it's just coffee all day. Whatever it is, right? I mean, they're doing
crutches.
things, medications, crutches, right? I mean, all these different stimulants. I thank God we don't have to do that. It's like, but we practice what we preach. So, okay, in this episode, I want to give them some tests even to start with. And what I had put together in one of my lectures is a 90-day program. And because I like 90 days, because people in 90 days can develop new habits. And also, in this 90 days, you can literally take pre-tests to look at and evaluate your cellular age. So actually, I mean, maybe we should actually start there, right? I mean, just like, so what test can I see where I'm at my cellular age? Because that's ultimately what matters. And then after 90 days, you can retake these tests and say, okay, what is it did? I feel better, but my cellular age, did it actually make a difference? So let's just kind of start there, and then I'll let you walk me through the program. But number one, there's testing telomeres. And I don't remember what shows I've talked about telomeres, but telomeres, if I could show you this. Can you see that? No. No, look at that. You can actually see that.
Shoelace.
That's a shoelace. So imagine this is your chromosome, okay? And this the end on there, actually, there's a name for that end of the shoelace.
Yeah, I don't know it.
When I was lecturing, someone said it. Actually, I was lecturing with Don Kluman. He said the name. It's like I almost had it, but anyways, not the point. So you have this. Now, why is that plastic on the end of that? And there's a good reason for that. I'm like pulling it out. Now I've just untied my shoe. Okay, there's a good reason for that, because it is there to, if that comes off, what happens to your shoelace? It frays, right? Well, telomeres are at the end of our DNA, at the end of our chromosomes, and it protects the DNA, protects the chromosome. So think of that as your telomere. Now, they're measured in basis. Okay, so the point is this: when you're born, they're a certain length. When you die, you actually die at a certain length. So when they measure these in basis, you're born, well, you're conceived at about 15,000 measurable bases, and you die around 5,000. So the shorter they get, the closer to death you are. So we can use these as the only really biological clock that we have to see how close you are. And we know this: the shorter telomeres get, the more degenerative diseases that we see. So it's an important number. In the old days, the test used to be $400 or $500, then it was like $300. You can get through teleyears, T-E-L-E, and then the word years.com, teleyears. You can actually get a telomere test for $90. If you buy two, if you buy your before and after ahead of time, I think it's like 160, 170 maybe. I don't know, they give you a little break on it. But so very inexpensive now, very accurate testing. So that's one thing that you can do right away. Now let's say, okay, I don't want to get that, but I want to know where I'm starting, where I'm finishing this program. There's a couple tests that are just common blood tests. RDW, it's on most blood tests like that. It's called the red blood cell width variation. But if you look at that number,
that's measuring the width of your blood cells. The red
yeah,
blood cells,
exactly.
Right?
So it actually determines a lot to do with how you're aging. So it's a really cool number, and we can give them the normals.
Okay.
You know, I think one of the is under 15 basically is kind of where you want to be on that. You know, but anyway, so we can look at these numbers and determine where that is, you know, where you are, where you're aging. And then another one on a lot of blood tests is the GGT, which is a liver marker, ironically enough, but insurance companies actually use that to look at your mortality risk. So there's an important one. Okay. But yeah, so, and I think, you know, Jim Mercola actually put out something on that as well, you know, talking about how important that one is, and it's a really amazing marker. So there's another one that's very easy for all of us, you know, to look at and get.
Okay. RDW and GGT.
Those two.
Okay.
And then another one that's very easy to get is the HbA1c.
Right, of course.
Yeah, which is looking at your glucose levels, right?
Over a 3-month span.
And we're going to talk about this, but, you know, the lower in studies, many studies show, the lower that number, the longer people live. The higher that number, I don't like it being over 5.4. You know, even below 5 is best as an optimal range. But
because that's showing a high blood sugar over 3 months
time, affecting your cells. You know, I mean, that's really what it's showing. And the higher that number gets, the more disease people have, and the shorter they live. So, I mean, it's a really predictable number. Insulin, I would say, is another one that's, you know, we like to see that under 3, at least on insulin. So, again, showing blood sugar in insulin. I always say, if you want to age faster than anyone,
like blood sugar.
Yep, exactly, and your insulin. So, so those group of tests, I think it's really fun. If you're going to do this, and we're going to challenge you on this show here to do this for 90 days, right? And we're going to lay out the diet, even some exercise. But if you commit to this, and with supplements even, I think that are important to take. And there's a new one you might not have heard of. But I think if you put these supplements together, put this diet together, and the diet we're going to lay out in 90 days, and the exercise, I know that you'll see a difference on this test. You will. The telomere test, they usually say wait 6 months to be truthful. You know, it's a 6-month run. So maybe some of you that do the telomere test continue this stuff for 6 months and then do your telomere test. So, but anyways, most of the other ones, you'll see some even change in just that 3 months. You'll feel better too. So there you go.
Great.
There's the challenge. Now let's talk about the program.
You've been challenged. All right. Well, and it's great to have those baseline measures before we get started as well. But all right. So now to move on to the anti-aging program and the 3 keys to anti-aging that you use in your life, that you teach your clients and the doctors across the country. And I mean, these are the real deal, and they work really, really well. These are amazing strategies. So kind of piggybacking off of kind of some of those blood work markers, especially the HbA1c and the insulin. Number 1, of course, the strategy for anti-aging is going to be strategic diet. Now, what is the anti-aging diet, Dr. Pompa, that you suggest?
Okay. Well, I did something really easy for you here, because it's not just this diet, right? There's things that we've talked about on the show that really need to be implemented. So in this 90 days that I recommend, we're going to kind of lay it out month 1, month 2, month 3 as we talk about diet. Okay, so let's talk about month 1. Ketosis. We've talked a lot about ketosis. And for those of you who are new, you can watch multiple episodes we've done on ketosis. But just for a little review, what is ketosis? Cells can only use 2 things for energy, sugar or fat, right? So in ketosis, we're forcing the cell to use fat as its major energy. And when it burns fat, it makes something called ketones that just happen to be anti-aging for our brain.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah, exactly. So it heals the brain, reduces inflammation. Ketones even turn on something called a SIRT1 gene. We call that gene a longevity gene. There's other genes that are the the bad genes for aging, right? It turns those ketones have an ability to turn those off, those bad genes that age you faster, and even processes that age you faster, and turn on these genes that slow aging down, and even protect our telomeres, those biological clocks that we have on our DNA.
Right. So
we know that ketones have an effect on the telomeres. It has an effect on the SIRT1 gene that slows aging down. So ketones are very, very, very important for anti-aging. Now, I believe, this is my belief, that I'm not a believer in always being in ketosis. And the reason I say that, and I know, some of you all don't like when I say that, the low carbers and the ketone people, but no culture ever, no healthy culture ever stays in ketosis. Even the Eskimos, I mean, the moment they had higher carbs, they would eat it, and potentially coming out of ketosis. So I really believe it, and I would argue that always being in ketosis in an environment like the Eskimos were in, it was actually the perfect diet to stay in ketosis. But even then, they had seasons where they would come out of ketosis. So I'm a believer from the majority of us that moving in and out of ketosis, ketotic states, is really emulating what our ancestors did. They were moved into ketosis because of lack of food. What happens is that moves. The fastest way to get into ketosis is fasting, by the way, 100%. Right? So yeah. So lack of food. In the winters, the harsh winters, of course, meat, blubber, even like the dairy fats, they kept, right? So vegetables and things like that, you didn't have it, right? You didn't have it, it was meat and fat. So there was times where all these very healthy cultures, lack of food, environmental changes, multiple reasons why they went into ketosis. And we know this also, it resets your DNA. So when you go in these times of ketosis, there's a resetting of your DNA, even a resetting of your gut bacteria. So ketosis, I believe it's part of God's plan, that when we go in these times, hard times, these dietary changes, which we're going to talk about diet variation, it resets our DNA, resets our microbiome. And there's something that really we don't even understand yet as far as how it adds to our longevity and long, healthy life, anti-disease as well as anti-aging. But so going into ketosis is month 1. And again, I mean, how to do that, where can they get the keto roadmap? Because on this episode, we don't have time to tell them how to get into ketosis.
Yeah, it's ketoroadmap.com.
Okay.
And you can go there and dig into kind of a little bit more of the ins and outs of Keto 101 and the low carb diet plan, and just some of the tools to start to move yourself into ketosis.
So there you go. So month 1. By the way, it takes about 2 to 3, maybe some people 4 weeks to get into ketosis. So it's perfect for month 1. And as we move into what we're going to tell you to do in month 2, being in ketosis first is going to make a big difference. So if it takes you all month to get into ketosis, great. So that's why we gave you a month. Get into ketosis, okay? And it's not that hard. You believe me, you lose a lot of your hunger, because when you get fat adapted, what happens is that your body's using fat as an energy source. So that immediately makes you eat less. When you go into ketosis, do you eat less?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, neither of us, we've been working all day. We haven't had a drop of food and feel great.
It's
amazing.
True. And if you're not in ketosis, it's harder to go longer without food. Right? We're going to talk about fasting, intermittent fasting next, and it does make it so much easier, because you're fat. When you're in ketosis, we have a saying called fat adapted, right? So you're fat adapted, meaning that your cells are adapted to using fat as energy.
But can't you be fat adapted and not be in ketosis?
Yes, because I mean, when this summer I went purposely out of ketosis for most of the summer. I'm back in ketosis now, but that's diet variation. So we purposely move in and out of the state. We call that seasonal diet variation. But I went out, but yet I'm so fat adapted and used to using fat. I would be out of ketosis in the morning, meaning you'll see this when you watch episodes or have the keto roadmap. You test to know you're in ketosis by a little blood prick, and then it's 0.5, and we're measuring beta hydroxybutyrate, ketones in the blood. And if you're above 0.5 or 0.5 and above, you're in ketosis. So I would be out of ketosis, maybe 0.2, 0.3 in the morning.
From having a lot of carbs the night before?
Yeah, or even the day before, right? You know, so, and then in healthy carbs, and that, not always though. Sometimes I do throw a little pizza.
You gotta live.
Not always. But anyways, I would be out in the morning. By the afternoon, as I intermittent fast, my ketones rise and I end up with high ketones. So I am fat adapted, you know, even when I'm not in ketosis. But the point though is that when you're in ketosis, you do eat less and you have less hunger. Matter of fact, when you're eating fats in your diet, you release some enzymes and cholecystokinin. I had to think of it. That releases, that actually shuts off your hunger. So people in ketosis eat less. Now, anti-aging strategy number one is, if you know, eat less and you do live longer when you look at studies. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, how to eat less correctly. Because when you do, I mean, if you search anti-aging, I mean, you'll get a lot of people that blow out all these different anti-aging products calling it crap, and it's probably true. However, where the science holds up always is eating less. And so, you know, there's a whole topic there. But when you're in ketosis, you're eating less by not having to force food away. You're eating less just because your cells, you're eating all day, you're eating your fat stores. So therefore, your metabolism doesn't slow down, which is the problem with eating less, by the way. So people try to caloric restrict for weight loss or for living longer. It doesn't work. Your metabolism gets slower and slower, So, but when you're in ketosis, you eat less cholecystokinin, you eat less because your hormones adapt. So you're eating less, you're eating to full every time you eat. You just don't want to eat as much, and you don't want to eat as often, which we'll talk about. But so, yeah, I mean, so ketosis is anti-aging, number one, because the ketones turn off bad genes, turn on good genes. The ketones have an anti-inflammatory effect. The ketones do all these amazing things, but also we're controlling glucose and insulin, which we already said. If you want to live longer, control glucose and insulin. So therefore, your testing, your HbA1c gets lower. All those tests that we mentioned actually get better. So it controls glucose and insulin because you're burning fat. When you're not eating and you're burning fat, your glucose is just perfect, absolutely perfect. And it's the best way to do it. And then also the last point, you're automatically eating less. So turns on good genes. The SIRT1 gene protects your DNA, has all these anti-inflammatory qualities. You know, you automatically eat less, which studies show is the key to living longer, healthy. And of course, as I just mentioned, that you actually, what was the last thing I said?
You just automatically eat less.
You eat less, but there was the other point. Anyway, wow, yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, a lot of benefits. And the keto diet, too, is so luxurious, too. Oh, my gosh. The foods are so rich and satisfying. So it's very automatic that you're just satisfied with less.
Yeah.
Because of all the fat. So
ketosis.
Yep, number one for under proper strategic diet. So step two then under the diet category, what's another strategy?
Step two, month two.
Yep.
Fasting. And now again, we could talk about block fasting, which I'm not saying at month two here for all of you, you should do a block fast, right? You know, for those of you who are very sick and challenged, you need supervision for that, right? But all of you can intermittent fast. And so we'll make that intermittent fasting. But I still do want to talk a little bit about block fasting because I think that when we look at the studies there's a really exciting science around that. But intermittent fasting, so I left the ketosis as studies show no doubt, very clear that those who eat less live longer. Okay. So, but how do we eat less? Ketosis is one way, of course, but the other way is eating less often. And there is intermittent fasting. I think the easiest way to talk about intermittent fasting is talk about eating in windows. So instead of eating 5-6 meals a day, which is the fastest way to age, by the way.
Spike your blood sugar up.
Even if you're eating a salad or something healthy, you spike glucose and insulin, right? No matter what, you spike glucose.
Even a small amount.
Absolutely. Right? It's a handful of nuts, you still spike insulin and glucose. Right. I mean, maybe not as high depending on what you're eating, but the point is every time you spike insulin and glucose, there's a challenge to your cells, and it creates oxidative stress, which your body has to adapt to. So, we don't want to do that. When you're not eating, I had said, you're burning your fat as an energy source. You have perfect glucose and insulin, and that's the key. So the way to eat less is by eating less often. So eating in a window of 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, you choose your window. That could look like eating a first meal at 10 a.m. and eating from 10 a.m. to maybe 4 p.m. as a last meal. Or it could look like eating your first meal at 2 and maybe 6 or 7. You see what I'm saying? Pick your window. I always say pick your window that works with your lifestyle, right? I mean, there's arguments.
If you can't follow it, then you're not going to do it.
What good is it? Right. People say, well, it's better to eat early. It's better to eat later. I mean, there's all these arguments out there, and I think it's different for everybody. But my point is it's all for nothing if you can't do it. So pick a window of eating that works for your social, your work, your family, right? So my window is I typically don't ever eat before 2 o'clock. So, somewhere between 2 and 7 or 4 and 7. I mean, sometimes I'm eating in a much smaller window, but pick a window, eat in that window.
And is that 1-2 meals for you typically?
It can be 1 or 2 meals. And by the way, many times during the week, and we'll talk about that diet variation, I just eat 1 meal. But I will typically eat 2 meals. Some days, we're eating for maybe 3 hours, and that emulates a lot of these ancient cultures as well. So
it's a longer
meal that takes 3 hours. So you could it almost incorporates into many meals, right? In a window of 3 hours, right? So you could start eating for 4-hour window and just kind of eat in that 4-hour window. If you're like saying, I just like smaller amounts of food, what do I do? That's what you do. Pick a 6-hour window and eat throughout that 6-hour window is little bits at a time if you're a picker, right? Because people always say that. I hate intermittent fasting because I'm a picker, right? I don't like to eat a lot. Okay, great. Still pick a window and just eat small throughout that whole window.
Still getting benefit because it's within the window.
Yeah. So I think we should say why is intermittent fasting so powerful? Number one, you eat less. The way to eat less is by eating less often. So at the end of the day, I do eat less food. I'm calorically restricted. And I eat less protein, which has been shown that there's something called mTOR. And mTOR is bodybuilders because they're in an anabolic growth state. However, they live shorter. And it's definitely associated with a lot of different diseases.
Especially longevity, too, which is the topic.
Absolutely. So if you look at 2 things for sure that we know raise up mTOR, it's high protein. So people always ask, well, how much protein should I eat? Anywhere between 0.75 per lean body weight to 0.5 per lean body weight. So example, if you weigh, lean body weight. So let's say you're 150 pounds leaned out, or, maybe it's 140 pounds leaned out, take half. So 70 to 75 grams of protein a day is a good idea. So what is your lean body weight? Divide it in half. You're kind of there on your protein grams. Days you work out, you can ingest more. If you're, obviously if you have more muscle, you're bigger. That's why we say lean, you can ingest more, but that formula accounts for that. So, but days you work out, if you're very, very active, go on the higher end. of that. So
still a range.
Yeah, maybe 0.7, what I'm saying, but still a range, I mean, but we know that if you ingest too much protein, you activate mTOR, and that ages you fast. It does, and it drives a growth factor. We want to keep our bodies in a repair factor, and Don Clune discussed that at the seminar that I spoke at as well. But anyways, so we want to stay in that repair. We want to downregulate that, not eating too much protein. The other thing that stimulates mTOR is glucose. So that's the benefit of being in ketosis, because we have a control of the mTOR, which leads to this anti-aging. So, okay, so there's eating less often. You naturally caloric restrict the right way. You definitely eat less protein, less calories, right, which is controlling mTOR, and that controls your glucose. So we know you're anti-aging that way. Another thing that's been in the news, I think, a lot, because the 2016 Nobel Prize winner won it for a word called autophagy, which we've talked about on the show, which is basically when you're in a fasting state, even these 16-hour, 18-hour windows that we're talking about here, intermittent fasting, your body gets rid of the bad cells first. It literally gets rid of the bad mitochondria, the bad cells, the bad DNA.
The innate intelligence takes over.
It's so cool.
Smart.
And it gets rid of the trash, the rubbish, the thing. So
like a debris kind of removal service.
I love that. Yeah, it's a debris removal service. It comes in and clears out the garbage. Now, so imagine doing this every day. So every day you're getting rid of a little bit of garbage, When you do a long fast, you're getting rid of a lot of garbage fast.
Deep cleaning.
Yeah.
That's like the spring deep cleaning,
right?
Yeah,
I knew there was an analogy in here somewhere. Yeah.
Spring cleaning.
Right, but if you didn't, you have to clean your house a little bit every day. Otherwise, you turn around, it's a disaster, right? Who wants to live in a disaster? Who wants to live feeling like a disaster?
Well, your body's your house. It's a great analogy.
So intermittent fasting is cleaning up a little bit every day as far as getting rid of the garbage. And a big fast is like when you come in and do that deep cleaning.
Love it.
We're going to put that in the article.
I know. That's good. That's a perfect analogy. We're doing the dishes every day, but you got to take the trash out weekly, but then you got to do that deep overhaul, cleaning the carpets and the rugs and the curtains. And a few times a year, those longer fasts are very, very powerful for that deep cellular cleaning.
I always say that I can't come up with an idea without speaking it, right? And that one, she spoke it.
Well, we worked it together. Awesome.
Brainstorming in that out. Okay, so then, all right, so did I hit all the things then?
No, not yet. All right, so we started with the ketogenic diet and moving into ketosis that first month. Second month, we're incorporating intermittent fasting, and that can look like daily intermittent fasting or incorporating block fasts as well. And then number 3, proper diet.
Let me talk a little. I said I wanted to talk a little bit about block fasting. I was hoping I was making sure that I hit everything as far as intermittent fasting goes, like making sure they know how to do it. For me, it's just I don't ever eat breakfast, and I go until later before I start eating, and I eat in that window. That's as simple as it is, right?
Yep.
Okay, when we said the benefits. Okay, so we're clean there. All right, block fasting, meaning extended fasts, where I like to do it, say, a minimum of 4 days.
Okay.
And the reason I like to do it as a minimum of 4 days is because the magic happens day 4, meaning that day 1, for us, it's easy. Day 2, people are hungry, they don't feel well, their glucose is low. Their body's not burning enough ketones yet, so your brain feels good. They're cranky. Day 3, some people are transitioning out. Some people still feel worse, right? Low glucose, and we always train people to measure your glucose and ketones in the morning, and hopefully through the day they're going up. By day 3, your glucose is dropping, maybe 60s and 70s, hopefully, and then by day 4, the magic happens. You better be in the 60s, right? Hopefully, some people aren't that good yet. And your ketones start rising up to the 3s, the 4s, the 5s. Not 0.5, 5, right? 6.
Yeah.
Marilee just sent
me.
Yeah, my wife's fasting right now. So
yeah,
she sent it to me this morning now. She was day 4 of her fast. This is a water fast.
She's been measuring blood sugar and ketones each day.
Each day. So
and morning and then afternoon.
Oh, look, just kill me for this one. That's her tongue. She's gonna really do that. She's gonna really love
the fasting tongue.
All right, so this was her morning. I think this was day 4. So she was 72 glucose on the morning now, and then she was 6. So she was actually 6. There's her readings.
Wow.
Yeah. So her ketones were 6.
Really high ketones.
But her glucose now, it comes down because the day before, as the day went on, her glucose was trending down to the 60s. Today, I bet her glucose will be 40s. I mean, because she's day 5 today. So she'll be in the 50s and 60s, low 60s on her glucose. Her ketones, I can't wait, because I bet you they might even be as high as 7.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really high.
How high is too high? Can you go too high?
I mean, not in a like a diabetic ketosis. You can. When your body stops producing insulin, that's called diabetic ketosis. You can go too far. But here's the cool thing is, even like where she is right now, the numbers she's giving me here, she is in what we call the target range, meaning that her glucose and her glucose has dropped to a point and her ketones rose to a point where we see the greatest amount of autophagy. So right now, I probably sent her back. Let's see what I said back. We'll make sure it's not like, sexual in nature or anything like that. No, I said, I think I said something about her body, wow, you're really killing off bad cells. I said something about you need to sign the electronic document. Okay, anyways, I know I said, but probably on her past one.
Wasn't this Seyfried, Thomas Seyfried? This is based upon his work and his ranges, of those kind of therapeutic ranges. So, yeah.
Anyways, I did text back. I can't find the text because it was on the first one that she showed me, and I can't get up high enough. But I basically, you're killing off a lot of bad cells. Keep going, So, yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, is when you see that target hit of the glucose dropping and the ketones raising to a certain point, we know that the greatest amount of bad cells are dying. So
house cleaning,
massive, man. They're in the corners,
right?
Yeah, massive debris removal. So that's the best thing about fasting. So intermittent fasting, a little bit, the big thing like that. Now here's what Seyfried, you just mentioned his name. Thomas Seyfried said this: 1 fast a year. Just 1 fast a year.
1 7-day, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a 7-day water fast.
He said if you did a 7-day water fast a year, just 1, it reduces your cancer risk by like 95 to 98%.
Massive.
Yeah, because you're getting rid of these bad DNA that replicate to cause cancer. So, I mean, I make sure I do a fast every year. I just fasted for 2 days before I actually came here. And because I was going to do a 5-day fast, actually, but I realized I had to come here. I'm like, God, it was stupid. So I just went 2 days. But, in that 2 days, I had a lot of autophagy, but it was so easy because I intermittent fast every day. And that's the point I want people to start with, the intermittent fasting before you do a block fast, because I went 2 days and I was like, I wasn't even phased. I think I got hungry like one time, day 2, it lasted probably 5 minutes, moved on. That was it. After day 4, it's easy. You're not hungry anymore.
Yeah.
Your body's using its fuel. It's using all of this bad stuff, all your bad DNA, all of your bad proteins as a fuel source.
That's the energy.
And you're fine. That's your energy you're getting. And that's why, I don't know if some of you watch my Facebook, but I did a Facebook Live. I talked about intermittent fasting, and we were having dinner with a couple that owned the restaurant, Veneto. And Marcus grew up in Italy. And he just eats, most of the time he eats 1 meal a day, or eats in this 3-hour window, right? That's what he grew up with in Italy. And his wife she was the 5-6 meal a dayer. And she kept saying, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong.
But she wasn't getting results.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So I'm like, okay, Amy, he actually is doing it right now. Here's the deal. So he was all excited. Of course, you can watch the Facebook Live. But anyways, so in it, I said, oh my gosh, this should be a Facebook Live. So my wife, Marilyn, pulls out the thing, and we did a Facebook Live. And I'm explaining to her why this is right and why her method's not working and why, blah, blah, blah. So in it.
It's unprogramming what we've been told for so many years. What was the right thing to do, and it's really the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. So she had done a fast, he had done a fast, because they started doing the fasting. And actually, so he fasted. It was very easy for him. So first 3 days he was saying, all I see is pasta, right? That was like his comments. Yeah, but he had no problem. Day 4, I'm like, how are you today? And he said, I'm out golfing, actually. So yeah, he was like, I'm out golfing. And he wanted to go for day 5. He wanted to go on a mountain bike ride. I'm like, no, rest, man. Use the energy for resting. So don't do that. But point is day 4, day 5, you just break through and you have as much energy as you want. Your energy is coming from that waste, all that bad DNA, all the bad protein. So, all right, so let's go to number 3.
All right, so for under diet, we've got ketosis, bringing in intermittent fasting and block fasting. And number 3, we have diet variation, your favorite.
It is. Diet variation, just summing it up, I'm not a believer in staying in ketosis. everyone argues about what diet, vegan, vegetarian, this and that. My point is they're all right. The key is forcing adaptation through dietary changes seasonally. I talked about how I was in ketosis, and now, I wasn't in ketosis. Now I am, and I'm back. So I move my diet around purposely. So many benefits to that, because now when I'm not in ketosis, I'm naturally eating more fibers. Do you find that?
Yeah.
Fibers, foods. I mean, you just kind of, like you said, hey,
you gravitate toward real healthy food that your body
fruits
needs.
And different things, but offer totally different types of fiber, nutrients, right? Being in ketosis, you gravitate towards, fattier things, right? And you eat more foods that are typically not as fibrous. I mean, you can in ketosis eat more fiber, because fiber is a carbohydrate that doesn't offer a energy towards carbohydrates. You don't have to count it. That's why we say, if you go into ketosis, we count net carbs,
right?
Take away fiber, carbs. But the point is, though, is that you're being forced to eat different foods when you're doing different diets, and there's a benefit to that. But the benefit is this: when you switch diets, we know that the microbiome starts to change, right?
Different gut bacteria digest different foods,
Absolutely.
Right? So it diversifies our flora.
And then we've learned recently that there's magic in that. That adaptation that happens even hormonally, your microbiome, we realize have all these benefits associated with them. So I think modern science is going to prove more that I'm right. It's not staying in one diet all the time is not good. We want to force adaptation. I call it hormone optimization. When we look at the hormonal changes that occur when you switch diets, it's amazing. That's why typically when people go, well, I went vegetarian, I felt so good. I went paleo, I felt so good. My point is, it's the switch. So paleo, vegans, vegetarian, keto, it's all right. Switch. Pick one, change it up, but eat healthy carbs when you switch. Eat healthy foods.
And seasonally too. I mean, that's why we are meant to enjoy different foods, because there's different foods available year round. In Pittsburgh in December, mangoes aren't natural. So let's really look at what's available locally and seasonally too, so we can really diversify our flora naturally.
That's why I like to go out of ketosis in the summer, right? You have such
good the produce, the fruit.
The fruits is so much better.
Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, so there's benefit there, and then let's talk a little bit more about weekly variation, because I think that's in this program something they can do right away, because we're not varying their diet seasonally, because we're moving them into ketosis, right? So let's talk about weekly variation, because there is a way to vary your diet even weekly and have major hormone adaptation that is benefited for anti-aging. So I think the 5-1-1 rule is the easiest for them. So 5-1-1, and here's what I mean by that. 5 days where you just eat in that window, that intermittent fasting that we already talked about in month 2, right?
10 to 4, noon to 6,
Absolutely.
whatever works for you.
Whatever works for you. Pick another day of the week. Wednesday is a good day, where you only eat one meal. Okay, so one meal. So now you're pushing the fast, right? Anytime. You're pushing the fast 23, 24 hours. Okay, so you're going to get major growth hormone rise, anti-aging. You're going to get more autophagy, anti-aging. So all of these hormonal shifts take place that benefit anti-aging. You could do those, you're a little tougher, do 2 or 3 days like that if you want. Vary it. Now here's the other magic. Pick 1 or 2 days where you feast.
So fun.
Yeah.
Feasting.
So now you get to eat more. You eat more carbohydrates because you've been in ketosis. Now, there's hormonally benefits there. So we need glucose and insulin oftentimes to make certain hormone conversions. So you get that anti-aging effect there. You get a rise in certain hormones that actually, your body loves and it feels good.
And just the mental boost too, of having some dark chocolate, some berries, sweet potatoes, plantains, all these healthy carbs. It feels good too, and honestly, it can be very relaxing to the system as well when you have those carbs. I had a client the other day, and she was just feeling a lot of stress, and I was thinking, like, gosh, you've been too low carb for too long, like, girl, eat some carbs. And she was so excited for that, and I know she's going to feel better by incorporating more healthy carbs.
Let's talk about too low carb for too long, because that brings up another benefit to diet variation. When you are too low carb too long, what happens oftentimes, your body starts to think it's starving, because your body can only use sugar or fat as an energy source, right? Your cells. So when it knows it can only use fat as its major source, it's smart. It goes, I want to conserve this energy, right? So it's like if you're in the middle of the woods and you only have so much firewood to survive. you're not going to use a lot at once. You're going to use a little bit. That's what your body starts doing with its fat stores. So all of a sudden now you're storing fat, even with healthy food, and not burning it.
Right.
The moment,
which makes sense for survival,
absolutely.
But not when most of us want to, lose and maintain weight.
And if you showed up at my door in the middle of the woods and said, "Oh, I just brought you a whole bunch of more firewood," guess what I would do? I'd start throwing more firewood on. I'd be like, "I'm going to warm it up to 80 degrees in here," right? So we would start burning. That's what your body does. When it knows then it has more wood, more fuel. Yeah. So you're feeding it and you're feasting, and it goes, "We have plenty of firewood. So
I can trust you. I'll release all of
I'll
this.
release." So then it starts burning your stored fat at a much higher rate again. So it kicks in fat burning. It hormonally optimizes you because you need that insulin and glucose rise actually help transition even thyroid hormone, T4 to T3. You need insulin in that conversion. So it can feed fire to that as well. Because hormonally, some people, you've heard things like, well, people who have thyroid issues and adrenal issues can't intermittent fast.
Right.
No,
all the time.
That's right. But when you do this diet variation, there lies the magic. Because those, to the point, thyroid people, adrenal people, when they intermittent fast without diet variation, they eventually have a hard time. But when you do it with diet variation, there's the key. We just gave them a huge key. So.
Diet variation is so magical. And I mean, the proof's in the pudding too, but I know when I first started doing it, I had that carb day, like where I was like, oh, thinking I had so many carbs, gonna see how I feel waking up. The next day, I felt so much leaner. I couldn't believe it. Because my body was like, okay.
So yeah, second day, I mean, we prove it. We measure, glucose, ketones. The second day after, your morning numbers are like amazing. Your glucose is lower, your ketones are higher.
Which you would think would be the opposite.
Right,
but
your body's burning it. Sometimes the day after, you might see a spike, but then the second day you really see the fire, start to burn out. So ketosis, fasting, and now the diet variation, which is really hormone optimization. It optimizes the hormones, your microbiome, these changes in the diet, force that hormone optimization that leads to anti-aging. So there you go. Spelled out for you, month 1, month 2, month 3.
Yeah, all about promoting metabolic flexibility for cellular adaptation. So
absolutely.
Number 1, we got strategic diet. All right. Number 2, key to anti-aging, proper exercise. So not all exercise regimes are created equal.
Absolutely.
And especially some are not good. Some will actually age you.
Just when you do these marathon runners that are out there pounding the pavement constantly, look, they age. We know this. Their telomeres get very short very quickly.
Even just looking at a marathon runner versus someone who does sprinting or something,
you can see it in their face.
It's a different look.
It's a different look, no doubt about it. Sprinters age slower. So we know that more burst training, lifting, which we call resistive training, definitely hormonally is better for this. But I still believe in exercise variation, meaning that some endurance stuff mixed in with it. Again, some new studies on this that we can even, put in the article, show that varying it is the key. So there's days where I do resistive training and burst, and then there's days I get on my bike. Now I'm not promoting marathon and the Tour de France. That's I've done enough of that in my day, and no doubt it's damaging. But some endurance stuff with the resistive, it does show that the variation actually works better because there's benefits to the endurance. Too much of it is not good. But when you mix it together, right, you can even do in one workout, in one daily workout, you can even mix them up. So I know one of the gentlemen I lectured with, Dr. Klum, he likes to put it in one workout where he's doing the bike, he's doing aerobic, even bursts, and then he's doing some resistive training. He's doing, a few minutes of this, few minutes of that, few minutes of that. I mean, that's very hard to do, but he's mixing it up in one workout.
Really
I mix it up,
body.
Very challenging. I mix it up weekly. I'll do a day where I just go out on my bike. I'll do a day where I just take a hike, right? And then, at least 3 days a week, I'm lifting weights and doing some bursts. So I mix it up that way, weekly, if you will, just like the diet. So, and then I think so that's one tip, right? One tip is mix it up, right? The other tip is, and this is probably the biggest.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. Matter of fact, a friend of mine, he actually graphed. He has like years of like his weight, his BMI, I mean, everything. He graphs everything. He's really tuned in. And he saw this massive drop in body fat and on his graph. He actually showed me his graph. And I said, oh, what happened there? He says, oh, that's when I started exercising on an empty stomach. It was remarkable. So he didn't change anything except when he exercised on an empty stomach. Now I have him exercising, waiting longer before he eats, after he exercises, and we saw another dip. So exercising on an empty stomach.
And does he do that in the morning?
Yes. So intermittent fasting, exercise, and then we used to say, let's eat 30 minutes after, right? It's recovery.
Refuel.
No, once you're hormonally optimized with these things that we're doing, ketosis, intermittent fasting, we know waiting longer, at least an hour or two. I mean, and the more fat adapted, you can even do 2, 3,
I first
4.
trained this morning. That was like 8 hours ago.
Yeah, and she's fine, right?
Water.
So the more fat adapted you get, the longer you can go. But why? Because when you exercise on an empty stomach, here's the anti-aging tip. What happens is you get this massive growth hormone rise, right? And that's
which is the anti-aging hormone.
Absolutely. So what happens is the moment you eat, what happens is you just screwed that up. You cut it. It's like you stop that growth hormone rise. So the more fat adapted you get, the more you can ride that out and ride that growth hormone out, which is anti-aging. So when you're exercising on an empty stomach, you're riding that growth hormone out. And the more fat adapted you get, the more you'll be able to ride that growth hormone pony out and get the benefits of the growth hormone. So
then you first observed this in Africa too, when you saw
they went out. Yeah, that's the first time I observed even intermittent fasting. The men were gone at 4:30 in the morning. They were out hunting. They don't bring food.
Just woke up and went.
They just woke up and went. They barely even drink water, but they go out all day. They end up coming back at 3 or 4, depending on, I guess, the catch. But in the afternoon, and by the way, that's when they eat. They eat from that window, maybe 3 to 6. They ate the whole tribe in a 3-hour window. They ate, and it was remarkable. So I was like, how did they do this? How did they exercise all day without food? Fat burners. They were efficient fat burners, and this tribe virtually had no disease to speak of.
Wow. And they all, as a tribe, ate 1 meal a day, pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much a long,
Just
big meal,
long meal.
in the afternoon, So pretty neat to see that, but it is anti-aging, for sure. So
beautiful.
Yeah, so there's the exercise. And lastly,
all right, so we've got burst training and working on a fast stomach for exercise. And number 3, for anti-aging, there are some targeted supplements that can really make a difference. Now, there's a lot of anti-aging supplements on the market, and they're not all created equal. But what do you like? I know there's a newer one from System. Those are newer as this episode airs, which you're a big fan of, and maybe you can kind of delve into that. And then I know that there's a few that you like.
Well, I know, and I don't want to overwhelm people because I just want to keep it to some basics.
But, exactly. It's a plethora. You choose what's going to work for you.
So, look, I think when we look at collagen, we even taught this topic, anti-aging, most people are concerned about this. Right. Collagen does play a big role. I talked about not overeating protein, but the number 1 protein in most of our tissues, organs, skin, everything is collagen, right? And it's a protein that we need to recover. So when we talk about if you're repairing well, you're aging well, right? Collagen's the building blocks that we need to repair well, right? And we want to repair this well. So most of the collagens on the market, the bone broths that you see, the protein bone broths, number 1, they're loaded with toxins. It's a big problem. Heavy metals like lead, pesticides.
It's not talked about.
All of it's not talked about. But we've tested these things. Don't like them. Okay, so be very careful of bone broth proteins, etc. Test these products because they do contain a lot of contaminants. Well, finally, Dr. Shane at Systemic, who we work with, actually put together a collagen protein that has 6 different collagens, which is key. Wow. So when you look at collagen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10 are the main ones in literature that we need. And you need all of those collagens, which oftentimes, even some of those products, you don't even get the collagen you're thinking you're getting. And you have to be, according to studies, at least at an active dose of 18 grams. So when he put the product together, he said, number 1, it had to be clean. It has to be chemical free, which is really important with this. Number 2, it had to hit that 18-gram active dose, and it had to have all of the collagens that we know are studied for anti-aging and all that. So the product is called collagen. You mentioned ECM, which that is the product that we developed. So no doubt it's better than the bone protein broths and all that stuff because of what the reasons I just said. But it really is having even just a scoop of that a day is even. I like to have it as part of my first meal. with some healthy fats, etc., it's perfect. And it's about 17 grams.
You mix it into your coffee.
You can do it. You can do that. You can do
water.
it in coffee, smoothie, water, whatever you want. Honestly, with food, doesn't matter. I mean, just get these collagen in these these types of collagen, the amount of collagen in you. It really is key for anti-aging. I mean, it really does. It's a no bull crap thing. It works. But where people go wrong is, number one, they don't have enough. Number two, they don't have all the collagens. Number three, it's contaminated. So, that's the key to that. So putting that in this program, committing to that product for 3 months, I think is huge. So
collagen. And do you practice variation with that as well, or is that something you kind of like to think of consistently incorporating for a long time?
I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be consistently using it, right?
Okay.
And I think in the beginning, for at least 3 months, is perfect. And then after that, I think you can be intermittent with it.
Especially if there's joint issues.
Joint. I didn't even mention that. But again, hitting all the collagens, you're affecting not just the skin, your organs, and your joints.
Right. Awesome. And I know you have 2 other favorite anti-aging supplements that you've been using for a long time, but they are still so good for anti-aging. So, what are the other 2?
So if I put a very simple anti-aging supplement program together, the collagen, ECM, MORS, MORS, MORS. Number 1 is MORS actually has in it, there's a drug called TA65 that anti-agers take, very expensive. And they use something called astragalus root in it to create this. Well, astragalus root was put in MORS for the anti-aging effect. I believe, and even studies show it actually works better. It's 100% natural than the drug. And it is in MORS, but it's been shown to activate something called telomerase, which is the enzyme that helps lengthen and protect your telomeres. That's at the end of we started the show talking about
shoelace.
The shoelace, So that's why MORS. And MORS has methyl groups, which studies show methylation and methyl groups protect your DNA. And that's the key to aging here. So that's why MORS. Number 2 is ROX, ROX. ROX has active forms of resveratrol in it. And again, Google anti-aging and resveratrol, study after study after study.
It's all the red wine, right?
So
that's the benefit of the red wine.
Absolutely. So those are the things that studies show. We talked about caloric restriction. We can talk about the astragalus root. We can talk about resveratrol. Those are the things that actually really work. Those are the things that studies show that actually really do. So if you put the collagen, of course, the collagen, the MORS, and the ROX together, now and this diet and the exercise, that's why we think that this is the perfect 90-day true anti-aging. And we're true cellular detox, true anti-aging. This is the program for sure.
You're covering all the bases. Just a quick question with the supplements. So it would be a scoop a day of the collagen and then 2 capsules a day each of the ROX and the MORS.
Yeah, that's about right. And do that for 90 days. Those 3 supplements, those exercise, tips and the dietary things. So pretty simple.
Boom.
Take the test before and after, and I'm sure we'll hear about your results.
Let us know your results for sure. Wow. Well, it's a complete program. All the bases are covered, and it's the real deal. Proof in the pudding, and we live it out. I know you've had so many clients and just doctors, everyone you coach who do these strategies, and it's the real deal. And just even seeing people over the past few years too, you can really see a difference once they start to implement the strategies.
I have to say this, and I'm not bragging, but it happened just yesterday. So someone saw me that hadn't seen me in a while, okay? And he's a doctor, and he said, oh my gosh, he said, Dan, he said, you look younger today than back then. And that was 10, 15 years ago, somewhere between there. And he's like, you look younger today than back then, And I said, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So that was
you walk the talk, and you don't teach things that aren't real and aren't true, and you test it all yourself, and a lot of this, is learned through experimentation.
No doubt. I'm the ultimate biohacker. I try everything.
Self-experiment. You do. Me too. It's so fun. That's the fun part of what we do. So
sometimes I mess myself up too, though.
Well, that's part of it. Trial and error,
I'm trying things too high, too this. My wife's like, oh my gosh. But then
you pushed it too hard.
Exactly. Yep. But my wife, she's also another guinea pig with my kids too. But anyways, there's the program.
Beautiful. All right. So if you're curious to try the supplements, we have the new collagen, the ECM, the MORS, and the ROX. Go to revelationhealth.com, and we have 3 coupon codes for you. So collagen 15, MORS 15, MORS 15, and ROX, ROX 15. We'll get you 15% off any of those products if you want to try them yourself. So revelationhealth.com, try out those coupon codes. try the diet strategies, try the exercise strategies, check out these supplements, and let us know how you do with this anti-aging program. So
absolutely, and look for an article. We should really put it all in an article.
We'll put it out there. We'll lay it out in an article for you guys as well. All right, well, thanks for tuning in, coming in live from Chicago. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.